One piece of smart technology could help solve a murder mystery in Arkansas.
2 Pine Bluff teens are in jail tonight facing murder charges. Police say they are in custody in connection to the shooting death of 2 17-year-olds.
It was a bizarre story in Russellville, Arkansas today. A man who reportedly quit his job over low pay went on a shooting spree with 2 handguns.
Tributes are pouring in for Ann Presley. The Little Rock TV anchorwoman died over the weekend.
A suspect in the deadly Fayetteville shooting on New Year's Day in court this morning.
A Little Rock mother is pleading for help tonight. She is asking anyone.
Thanks for listening to Strictly Homicide, an Arkansas true crime podcast covering lesser-known cases out of the natural state. I'd like to start off by thanking my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to help support us, you can find us on Patreon and help with as little as $1 a month. There's also a donate button for a one-time donation on strictlyhomicide.com. Please stay tuned until the end of the show to hear a few promos from some of my favorite shows. Warning: Strictly Homicide covers cases that include sexual assault, violence, and homicide. Episodes may contain explicit language and are not suitable for young ears. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome back, devotees. This week we have a very special guest, Nicki T of Strictly Homicide.
Hey!
So, we have just been discussing plagiarism and how you should not do it.
Never.
Don't do it. So if you guys ever think, like, we probably both think we are probably not citing our sources. I know I have Chicago citation bibliographies because I'm a nerd. I'm fine with it. I fully claim my nerdiness of loving citations. I've done citation quizzes for school. That level.
Hey, it's okay.
Also, apparently you can't do footnotes in audio format.
Oh, that would be great.
Oh my god. How weird would that be? If all of a sudden you're just like, ding. You're like, would you like to know where this source is?
Not right now.
I mean, if you listen to your Kindle books where you have them reading it to you, it does mention the numbers.
Oh, it does?
So where there's a footnote is. Because sometimes they don't have some books on audiobook. And I don't have time to sit down and read them because I have things to do. So I'm like, oh, this works. And a nice British man reads them to me in a really robotic voice.
That's funny. Yeah, I don't read. I just don't have time. And I'll get one page in and start thinking about, what should I be doing?
Isn't that the truth?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you're going to go first, and you have, true to your podcast, an Arkansas crime.
Yes. So do you want me to tell them about the podcast first?
Yes, please do. We will plug at the beginning, we will plug at the end, we can even plug in the middle.
I wrote it down that way, so no.
That's fine.
So I'm Nicki T. I cover Arkansas true crime, and I try to focus on stories, or not stories, but cases that haven't been discussed a lot in podcast world, and most of my cases that I have done have never been discussed, so yay. Well, so anyways.
You're kind of, it's like, yay, new content to you, but then you feel like the victims' families, you're like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So, that's my podcast. You can find me on iTunes, all those other good places. Strictly Homicide Podcast.
Woo!
So, you want me to just get started?
Yeah, you can just dive in.
Okay, so the case that I am discussing occurred between 1944 and 1945. The case has actually been on my list for a really long time. My oldest daughter in California asked me to cover this case. Ooh. And she's never lived here. She was born and raised in California. And I was like, I've never heard of that case. How do you know of it? But I think she watches a lot of the YouTube stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'm too old for that. I'm not cool enough. But
YouTube true crime sometimes is the best because they find these weird facts. It's like podcasting with images and different sorts of things you can find.
When she visited, that's like all she watched was YouTube, and I found myself like, paying attention to it. But yeah, she heard of it on, I think it's on a lot of lists, like craziest crimes in Arkansas or whatever.
Okay.
He was Arkansas's first serial killer.
Ooh.
Aside from, I'd have to look at the dates, but I know the Phantom Killer was in southern Arkansas too. I don't know if they've ever compared the two. I'm sure they have, otherwise, whatever. But so I thought it would be fun to do because it's kind of a little bit of history too.
Me.
I'm not going to give you any history, but
I love me some history. I love me some murder. And
my mother-in-law's a history major, so
we're all reformed in some way where you just sit there and you're just judging people when they're talking about historical things and you're like, yes. The worst kind of history people are the people who think they know more than you and aren't willing to just be like, I want to see your point of view. Let me learn from you. So yeah, you sit there and you judge a little bit, but then you're also like, you might be like, damn it, they got a point I didn't think about.
Yeah,
it's happened to me a lot.
So I thought it'd be a good one. Or it's one of Arkansas's first serial killers. So yeah, because I didn't check the dates on the Phantom Killer, and I don't know it by heart. So his name is James Wayburn Hall. And,
3 names, never good.
Yep. And he had some nicknames. He was known as Big Jim because of his size. Makes me want to call him Big Tuna.
I would just think Big Jim, he's actually a short dude. They're just like, oh, there goes Big Jim. He's 4'3".
It's normally like that in Arkansas too. But and then so he was 5'10". He wasn't too big if you ask me. I think my husband's 5'10" or 6 foot, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And 170 pounds. He's actually the same exact size as my husband. I just realized that.
Okay, bring your husband in for comparison.
And then he was known by Red. Just Red. They'd call him Red Hall. And it was because he had wavy red hair.
So he's a ginger. He's a giant ginger.
Now, this next part, I had a hard time believing, but I have seen some good-looking redheads. So he was, I guess, described as dapper-looking and was known for his handsomeness.
It's the 1940s, he could have been like Capone-esque. G-Man style. Come on, he could have been dapper.
He was decent looking. I have a weird time trying to look at murderers and think of him that way, but he was decent looking. Okay. I couldn't find a colored picture to see his red hair, so it all looked the same to me.
Okay, people who do colorized historic pictures, I'm requesting one of this. Like, find him. Please colorize it. Please send it to us. We would like to see that ginger hair.
There we go. I might be able to go down to the library and find some. But later in life, and after his death, he'd be known by the nickname of the Arkansas Butcher. I don't think that name really fits because he didn't butcher anyone, but whatever. Anyways,
he's not like the torso killer where he actually butchered people. Like,
yeah, that's what I would think of. So he was born in 2 days after my birthday, January 28th, but like long before me, 1921. His mom was a housemaker and his father was actually a preacher.
They would have been screwed during the Depression, is all you're telling me.
Yep. They said his dad did some farming too. So, and down in the area, it's known for like, I don't know if they did rice then, but they grow rice here a lot.
I mean, farming is how my grandfather's family actually got through the Depression. He also taught all of us, or at least explained to all of us, how to kill a chicken.
Oof, I couldn't do it. My husband's mom's family, I think, had a farm. And similar, down in this southern Arkansas, down there. So his father and mom were extremely strict. He was one of 10 children.
Oh, God.
I know that back in the like 30s and 40s and 50s that was like normal, but just thinking of having 10 kids makes me want to kill myself.
Well, you have to think about it. Especially if you're farming, and it's that natural birth control too. So they're probably 2 years apart, exactly, something like that.
Oh, I couldn't do it. 2 is hard, but oh no, I know it was different then. So, parenting was different. I know that, especially in the South, that discipline was pretty nasty back then. But it was said that one of the beatings that he received from his father actually caused him to suffer brain injury.
Oh no, we got the first step of the McDonald's triad.
Yep. And this information was actually found out later whenever an author, Janie Jones, she wrote like a short article on it. And I used it for references and everything too. It was in About You magazine. She's actually going to she's in the process of writing a book about him.
Ooh.
And so she did a lot of research. She interviewed family members and everything, later on, and got information I couldn't find. And so it was found that he had a brain injury when he was really young, and it was from a beating from his dad. So then when he was around 18, this was 1939, he got married. So his first wife. 2 years later in 1941, they had their son. The marriage wouldn't last very long. They divorced 2 years after their son was born, so that they were only married 4 years. And the next year, 1943, he was 22. He was drafted by the Navy.
Oh, Navy's not horrible.
But he was pissed. He did not want to go. I assume many didn't, but...
I'm going to bring up my grandfather again. He... enlisted as soon as he could in the Marines.
Oh wow! He
fought in Okinawa and in China.
Oh wow! See, and that's what I always thought is they enlisted themselves. Apparently, James was not going to, and so they drafted him. He was miserable. He went away to training, and he would try and escape.
So he's Colonel Klinger is basically what you're telling me from MASH.
Yes, he continued over and over again to try and escape until he was eventually dishonorably discharged. They didn't go more into it. I couldn't find anything else, so I don't know if it was because of the attempts at escaping or if something else happened.
I'm guessing he peeled a lot of potatoes because he kept messing up. They're just like, you escaped again. Here's a bag of 500 potatoes. Go have fun.
And hey, that might have pushed him off the edge. No.
If you peeled a lot of potatoes with a really bad potato peeler, that's enough to make you homicidal.
Yeah. I wouldn't do it. So only 6 weeks later, he only went for 6 weeks out of the 8. He returned back to Little Rock. And,
he must have done something real bad to get dishonorably discharged that quick?
So I assume he definitely was trying.
Mm-hmm. Well, just think about it. When did he get drafted?
It was 43.
Yeah, we're real desperate for men because unlike Russia, we do not have a lot of men to just throw at the problem. We got a decent number of men to throw at the problem, but not as many. So the Navy needs men, and all the the branches need men. They're like, yes, please.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I was thinking. I was like, okay, I don't think that's why he was discharged. And he later says why, but it still doesn't go into detail. And so I tried to find why. I'm sure I could if I searched real hard, but I don't have that kind of...
You'd have to contact the Navy and do a Freedom Information Act, and then they'll be like, why do you need this? And you're like, because I have a true crime podcast.
Then they'll question me. No. I go on a list.
Let's not lie. Anyone who has a true crime podcast is probably already on a list.
Oh, I'm already on a list. Long ago.
I already know my mother's on a list. It's fine. That's a story for off mic. Let's just say Kitty Foreman has been searched twice by 2 different countries' TSAs.
Oh, no.
My mother looks like Kitty Foreman from that 70s show. That's that reference.
Oh, how funny. I don't know what he did, but he did.
He did something real good that was real bad.
So yeah, he was back in Little Rock in 6 weeks later. And then that following year, it was March of 1944, he decided to marry his second wife, 19-year-old, I think it's Faye Renee, which is really pretty, but I've never heard it before. So,
don't make your kids' names rhyme.
So
don't do it.
I may say it with a little chuckle every time because it's just not a name I say very often. But right from the start, their relationship was doomed. They fought all the time. And only just a couple months after getting married, they separated. It was just a small separation, but on again, off again, on again, you know, those kind.
A great relationship is what you're telling me. It's a stable relationship. They loved each other. They just needed little breaks. They definitely didn't threaten each other and have the cops called on them.
White picket fence. No. So, not even a year into the marriage, it was September 14th, 1944, and they were on during this time. They decided to attend a dance. So, I thought, at first I read they were going dancing, because that's what you think of, but no, they were going to attend a dance, which is just it's so cute.
Don't you wish they still had dances, though, where you could go and meet a boo or something like that? And like, aw, like your beau, and you're like, I gotta go pick, like anyone who's watched the Ella Fitzgerald mini or show on Amazon, they go to dances, and that's where you meet the guys, and you have a great time.
So they were going to a dance at a place called Rainbow Garden, and her friend Katie was going with them.
Can I just say that sounds like a gay nightclub?
That's exactly what I thought. And I was like, Arkansas, really? Nice. But then I was like, no, this is 1944 Arkansas. Who am I kidding? No.
It's secretly that. It's secretly that.
I'd go to Rainbow Garden for sure.
Oh, it sounds like it doesn't sound like a club. It actually sounds like a lounge or something where you can relax and hear music, yes. And maybe there's a drag show brunch.
Oh, for sure. We should start that.
Problem, we live in 2 separate parts of the country. Damn it.
So while they were at the dance at the Rainbow Garden, they got into a fight. So it wasn't relaxing for them, apparently. But they always fought, so I don't think it was anything different. But this was the night she told him she was going to leave him.
Oh, no, that's a trigger warning. I'm going to get my invisible red flag, and I'm going to wave it.
Yes. And so, but you know, this is 1944 in the South, and, you know, she has to do and say as he...
She has to be the submissive wife and, you know, be like she's in the help. I get it.
So, I mean, it had to have been pretty bad for a woman to stand up for herself like that. If you really think about it, you know.
Yeah. Especially if you already had a history of divorce. So there's already that baseline of something's not right. So she could have gotten a second divorce probably actually easier than the first wife.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, I mean, because divorce wasn't that common then, and I can imagine it wasn't common here at all. So I assume that it was pretty bad with him. And this, you know, of course, pissed him off. And the friend witnessed him, you know, yelling and then fighting and everything. And a little after midnight, they took Katie home, the friend, and that was actually the last time that she saw Faye Renee.
Oh, no.
So she, she really remembers what she was wearing, too. She had on, the tiniest details. She had on this red dress, and she said that the buttons were so unique that she couldn't forget them. That will actually come in really handy towards the end. So just
don't you wish
that.
they would have been like, you know what? You just got in this giant fight with your husband. Stay with us. Go back when you've both cooled down. That's what people do now. They're just like, okay,
yeah,
take some time apart. If you're gonna have to go back, let's give you some time so one of you isn't still really mad.
I can't imagine sending a friend home with different times. I know I keep saying that, but
it's literally you gotta save face. It's you don't get it. You don't get in between what's going on at home. It's their problem. Will you eavesdrop?
It was a little town too. It's a really small town. It was Enola, Arkansas. I think I forgot to mention that. So it was a really small town, so you can imagine.
Oh, everyone's listening, and they have their magnifying glasses watching them, but they're not going to help them.
Nope, not at all.
It's not my business. It's not my business, but I'm going to tell you what I heard.
Yep, they just turn a blind eye. It's insane to me. But it's really sad because a lot of that generation still do that, big time. But so I forgot to mention the town. So he grew up in Enola, Arkansas. So that is in southwest Arkansas, kind of not far from Texarkana.
Okay.
So so they dropped Katie off and left, and no one heard from her, talked to her, saw her, anything after that. And 2 weeks later, I guess. See, to me, if we don't hear from my mother-in-law or my mom, or, I'm not even close to my mom, but I do hear from her, ever so often. But they lived in the same town, and it's hard to imagine them going 2 weeks without talking to her. But I don't know the situation. So, but 2 weeks later,
everyone should have that friend you check in with every day. Let's not lie. Mine is Heather from Nature versus Narcissism. We also live 15 minutes apart, so it's easy.
You guys are lucky.
I know. We discovered it, and we're like, oh, this is dangerous. This is real dangerous. There have been jokes made by her husband that I'm moving in or something like that because I was over so much at a point.
Oh, I love it. So, 2 weeks later, no one looked into it, and I guess he was trying to cover his tracks, and so he went to his in-laws' house and told his father-in-law that she just took off and deserted him on September 25th.
Isn't it always the case? Oh, she just, in her
ran away.
Her feminine rage, she fled.
In 1944, no one fled. No. So her family, of course, immediately contacted the and let
they were a little
know.
bit stitious.
Yes,
they weren't superstitious, just a little bit stitious.
Exactly. And so the police opened up an investigation and started looking into it. But I read, and I don't know how much truth there is to this, but I read that it was closed immediately, and they declared her a runaway due to her promiscuous behavior.
I'm gonna object with the fuck that.
She could have been showing some leg in 1944 Arkansas, and they thought that. I don't know what they mean. I don't know if that's true. I could see it happening, especially in the South, especially then. Who knows?
It's just how if they couldn't define a woman, or she wasn't conventional housemaker, popping out kids, she ran away. Oh, I heard she socialized with men. She could have gotten coffee with a friend, a male friend, and that was solid there.
So there wasn't really much of an investigation. And then it didn't help. Around Christmas time, her relatives received a Christmas card signed by her.
No.
Postmarked, of all places, from Bakersfield, California. Now, I don't even know if you know where that's at, but I grew up in California, and that's like, you know what? I never went to Bakersfield. I didn't like it, but it's just the most random place. Okay.
How did he get the letter there?
I have no clue. I was like,
talent.
Okay. Yeah. Now, there was no pictures of it or anything like that, and supposedly he borrowed it or something and lost it. That could totally be hearsay too. So
Sure. He borrowed it. He took it back. He kept it. He like stared at it every night and goes,
he just wanted to smell it.
I got away with this.
And so during this whole time, there's no more investigation really going on. And his stories that he kept telling the community and the neighbors and his in-laws and relatives just kept changing. Because, it's hard to keep a story straight when you're lying.
You need a little note card?
Yeah, right?
She fled. She did not like being with me anymore. I don't know where she went.
So, during the next... So, his story just kept changing. People were really fishy about it, but nothing was being done by the police department. So, but then during the next few months, it would almost seem like Arkansas had a serial killer. They did, but they never connected it to her at first. They never tried to connect it to her disappearance. So it's almost like just completely move on to January 29th of 1945. Some loggers found an abandoned car in Camden, Arkansas, which is in the southwest part of the state. So it's just right near Enola, where he grew up. Not far. I think it was like 20 minutes. I don't know for sure, but when they found the car, the loggers, they got closer to the car and they noticed that there was a man like slouched over the steering wheel. And as they got to the car, they noticed that he was dead and he had been shot in the heart just one time. They used his fingerprints to identify him, and he was identified as a Camden barber named Carl Hamilton. He'd been dead for days when they found him. They didn't really have I guess they didn't have a reason. I'm totally doing air quotes to connect the cases. But when someone goes missing and 3 months later they find a dead person, I would have to, but.
And there's not really a lot of dead people showing up. Also, can we please say, yay, loggers for being an unrecognized finder of bodies. We don't think about them finding bodies a lot. It's normally joggers, not loggers.
Well, yeah, and imagine, there's a lot of forest land around here, too. And I think every time someone's hiding a body, for some reason, it's always by the river or in the woods. Every time.
Get creative.
I swear I drive by some of these woods and I just look and I go, baby, there's so many dead bodies in there. And he's like, you're so weird. So they didn't connect it at all, which to me, there's so many red flags, especially like you said, how many dead bodies are in Camden, Arkansas.
Obviously enough that it wasn't red flaggy. They weren't putting on the mountain of nope. There's just a single red flag.
Right. So, just a few days later, on February 1st, E.C. Adams of Humboldt, Kansas, was on his way to his job in Little Rock. They found he didn't show up at work, and then his car was found abandoned in Fordyce, Arkansas. And I asked my husband if I said that right, and he said yes, because I'm not a native. So, I always say the name's weird. But he said that's how you say it. So it's about 30 miles north of Camden. So we're kind of going in a,
upward trajectory.
Yeah, he started at the bottom of the state and was starting to move his way up. So they searched the area this time, again, and he was found near some bushes, and he had a single bullet to his head.
So we got a shot to the heart, and now there's a rock song's playing in my head, and then a shot to the head.
Shot to the heart. No.
I'm sorry, the first time you said that, I was just started singing, and I was like, don't start singing.
I think when I was typing it, I said it in my head and I did the same thing. So I love that you said that. We're totally showing our age now.
Oh, I love 80s music.
Oh, yeah. So now, a few days later, on February 6th, Doyle Mulheron, I butchered.
That's an unfortunate name.
Yeah. Doyle, too. I'm sorry, I won't.
Not disrespecting, it's the combination of the two. Like, a Doyle with a good last name would be fine. His last name with a good, like, a simple first, like, yeah.
It's a real old name, too. That's what I think of. I think of a grandpa. So he was reported missing after he missed work because he was a truck driver and they were expecting a scheduled delivery. They found his vehicle in Stuttgart, Arkansas, which is 75 miles northeast of Fordyce. So we're still going north and a little to the east. Funny, Stuttgart is known as the, is it the rice capital of the world or the duck capital of the world? Or I think it's the duck capital of the world. It's like huge for duck calling and hunting. I don't do that stuff. It's just weird. I know that.
Was the stuff still in his truck, though? That's the question. Because if he stole his stuff, that's just rude. On top of murdering the driver, you stole his load. Like, that's just...
No, I don't know if he stole... I don't know if he stole the stuff that he was... I don't even know what he was delivering. I think it was meat, so I would assume he stole
God,
it.
no. God, no. That's gonna smell horrible. There's probably bears.
So, yeah, right.
I don't know. Are there bears in Arkansas?
Oh, yeah. It's a natural state. So it's like all... I mean, I don't know if they're like right in Little Rock. But like, you know, you go up to the Ozarks and they're up there.
Yeah, there's going to definitely be some bears, probably some big cats, raccoons. Trash pandas will definitely be there.
Yep.
And it will smell like death.
Oh, it's going to smell. So maybe they performed another search and, in the area, and they found his body close by with one single shot to his head.
So we've moved from the shot to the heart to the shot to the head, and we cannot keep singing that song. Yeah. And I'm sad.
I think that's why he did it. No, wait, Bon Jovi wasn't even born. No. Or was he?
No, he was probably, he got big in the 80s, so he could have been born late 50s, so yeah, probably not born yet. I don't know when Bon Jovi was born. I'm just doing simple mental math.
I don't even know how old he is. But so yeah, he went for the head again this time. His employer did tell them that he should have had $125 cash on him because I guess they gave it to him for whatever reason.
Oh, probably for stopping for gas,
which seems like a lot back then, but
probably for the round trip.
Yeah, maybe. But they said no when they found him. His wallet was empty, so he of course stole the money. Which later on you'll find that he did that. You know, he got the wallets and tried to steal whatever he could from all of them, except his wife.
He already had her money. What she owned was his legally.
So there seems to be like a time period where nothing happens for just a couple weeks, but early March. Another car was found in Heber Springs. Now, this is 90 miles north of Stuttgart, so it's a little bit further, but it's still going north. And then it is, I actually just did senior pictures in Heber Springs, and it took me, I think, an hour and a half to drive there from North Little Rock. So it's up there.
Is it really mountainous?
Yes, it's really pretty, and lake. There's a pretty lake, and yeah, it's real pretty.
Okay, so it's kind of isolated then too, with the mountains and all that.
Yeah, it's even a small town now, and so I could imagine back then it was very, very tiny. So so he abandoned the car and he set it on fire, and so when they found the car that had been set on fire, they looked in the back seat and there was an incarcerated body, and it was of J.D. Newcomb Jr. from Little Rock, who was a boiler inspector.
You gotta make sure your boiler, it's probably the old school boilers too, so if you don't heat them properly, there could be an explosion.
Yeah, and it said it was a state boiler operator, or inspector. So I assume, it was kind of the same situation where he didn't show up at work. They didn't say, they just, they found a car that had been set on fire and then him inside. They didn't know it was him right away, of course, because, and then they had to identify him from his dental charts.
That's just crazy. I mean, you would want to think someone didn't notice he was at work, but I work with a lot of inspectors. If he goes out for, they all come to the office in the morning and then they go out.
Yeah, you might not see him one day.
If they don't come in, I'm not going to lie, those guys are constantly texting. They're constantly checking in with each other. It's ridiculous.
Well, that's good, though.
Yeah. They've been concerned about me a couple times when I'm not in. They're like, you weren't in yesterday. Where were you? I'm like, they're all funny. Their daughters' ages, so they're just like, are you okay? Everything's okay?
Aww.
Like, yes.
That's good, though.
I can work great with construction, guys.
Now, I know there wasn't phones back then and everything, but I assume with a job like that, he had to do the same and report in every...
Oh, yeah. He probably had to report in after, either when he got to the job after it was done, to just make sure, okay, this is what we're doing. I'm on to the next job. You can call those people and tell them I'm on my way.
Yep.
And whatnot.
So then, I think this was the day before. No. It was a couple days before, maybe. James was arrested.
Ooh.
After being involved in a bar fight. He pled guilty to simple assault and was just fined $106.90.
That's a lot for a fine at that point.
Yeah. But during this arrest, nothing was brought up about his wife's disappearance at all.
That's weird. I'm sorry. That's actually, you know what? Let's not blame old school cops because they didn't have the foresight. We have this foresight now.
Yes, for sure. And I get it. I mean, we are a small state, but I'm pretty sure they were looking at each of those murders, and they were all men. Every one of them was men. So I would assume, they wouldn't just put two and two together until a tip came in.
Ooh, I love me some tips.
So an acquaintance of his called in and told them that on January 28th, which was the day that the day before the first one was found, the one in Camden, Mr. Carl Hamilton. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the acquaintance said that he let him borrow his car and he returned it the next day on the 29th. But he said that inside the glove compartment, there was a loaded pistol and it was missing one single round from the clip.
Oh, no.
I'm assuming that this person also knew what kind of person James was and started maybe putting two and two together. You know what I mean? Because I assume he was a real dick. So,
what? You've described a gentleman and a scholar.
Yes, he's dapper. So, they get the tip, and they're taking it serious, especially realizing that his wife was missing. And the acquaintance tells him that he thinks that James left Little Rock and was headed to Conway, which is about, I don't know the mileage, but it's a 40-minute drive to Conway north. So this was March 15th, almost 3 months after 3 months and a day after she went missing.
Mm-hmm.
And they got him. They found him. They arrested him.
Okay.
So there was a news article that I found, a clipping, old school. And,
give it to me.
Yes.
I love some old school newspaper clippings. My bread and butter.
In the clipping, they, put everything in there, which I was like, God, I don't know that they would put all that in there nowadays, but who knows?
Oh, they used to publish addresses.
Oh, it must have been, they were like, juice. So, I'm going to read it. It's word for word. It's in quotes. This was a newspaper article. I couldn't, who wrote it, but I'll send it to you.
They didn't always publish the author on old newspapers.
It was like a clipping, too, so I don't know what newspaper, but it was, I'm sure it was an Arkansas one. So, they said when the cops arrested him, that this was what he told him. I'll tell you all about it. I killed them all. I married a Conway girl, and we were divorced after more than 4 years. We have a little 2-year-old, and I'm crazy about him. I was drafted into the Navy in 1943 and was discharged after 6 weeks service because of indifference. I don't know what that means. That's what he said. I didn't say
That's
that.
a BS excuse. That's what I'm going with.
I really love that he went, I don't know what that means. Okay, back. I married Faye Renee of Lona Clements. He said her full name. Of Lonoke on March 22nd of last year. Did I say March 14th or March 22nd? I think I said 22nd. Okay, anyway. She was 19. I was crazy about her. But we soon began having trouble. I think it was last August that I decided I had enough of it. So I took her out to the August. That's way off. I don't know why it says August because this happened in December. Or
He could be lying.
Or was it September? Yeah, September. Oh, okay, never mind. I'm thinking of when she sent the Christmas card.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, okay. So he said, I think it was August, but it was actually, because it was that 14th when the friend was with him. Okay. I think it was last August that I decided I had enough of it. So I took her out the Old River Road near Riverside Golf Course, led her off into a ravine on the banks of the river, and beat her to death with my hands.
Oh my God.
Yes, this was the part that I was telling you was kind of depressing. I didn't like it, but this is what he said. This was his confession. So, he goes on. I must have hit her more than 20 times on the head. I didn't cover her or make any effort to hide her body. No, it never bothered my conscience. So, this tells me he's a fucking monster. Like,
he has no empathy, nothing.
At all. And then he would brag to the cops about how he hitchhiked and murdered the people that would pick him up. And he was quoted saying, "It's not the way you wiggle your thumb or the gesture you make. It's all in the look you give the driver." Creep. Like,
that actually makes a lot of sense, though, because you want to look really inviting, really friendly. He's a bigger dude. You don't want to pick him up if he looks...
So he was, like, practicing. Oh, God, that just... It gives me the... Ugh.
But that also explains how he got... Like, he kept moving northeast.
Yes. And, you know, the writer, the author, Janie, was comparing him a lot to all of the highway killers, you know, that there has, and so...
I wonder if he was one of the first highway killers.
Definitely, for sure. Now, I don't know what roads they were picking him up on, though, so, but Arkansas is just all highways, so, so, I mean, he was practicing it. It was like almost like a job to him. So he, you know, admitted to all of them. He told them, admitted to every one of them in the order. And then he also said that when he was 17, which was 7 years prior, he murdered a black woman in Salina, Kansas. That's all he would tell them. He wouldn't go into detail. That's all he would tell them. So
I'm trying to figure out. Kansas isn't even that close.
Well, and I looked up, I'll mention it a little bit down, which will really make you think, how many people did he kill? I looked it up. It is pretty close to Northwest Arkansas. So up in the corner of the state. And I think there's an Air Force, or not an Air Force, a base there, because it mentions it here, but I don't know if that's where he went. I don't know for sure. And he was 17, so that wouldn't have been when he was enlisted. So then he took the police around to all the crime scenes, including where he buried his wife. They found human remains in the hole that he pointed to, the dress that she was wearing, which her friend Katie identified and then testified to it, a pair of her shoes, and wisps of human hair. So to top it all off, a farmer that was nearby saw them searching this area, and later he took a skull into the police and was like, "I found this in the hole y'all were searching." Like,
sir,
you just thought you'd turn it in?
So, I'm sorry, I find a skull. I'm like, this is weird. Probably should turn this back in.
So I don't know if he, like, found it, took it home. I mean, I can't imagine he thought it was an animal, but in this hole with the dress and shoes, did he not? Anyways, okay.
It's none of his business. It's none of his business.
It ain't his business. Sorry. I don't have the twang, so I'm real bad at it.
I don't have the twang either. I'm from Ohio.
Some people tell me I sound like a mix, like a Arkansas with a twang, but with a California accent. And I'm like, no, I sound like a Californian. I refuse. No.
I speak Clevelandese, apparently.
You know, he confessed. And his trials started in May of that year. Arkansas's fast. And
especially trials at this point? You in and out and executed within 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, they're fast here. So, he actually pled not guilt by reason of insanity. So, they had him observed in the state hospital, and the doctor testified that he wasn't insane, that he knew his right from wrong, he knew what he was doing. You know, I mean, it wasn't flying.
It's not an Ed Gein situation, is what you're telling me.
Yes. He never testified during the trial, but many witnesses that heard him confess testified. It took 2 days, and the jury found him guilty and sentenced him to death by electrocution.
Ooh.
On May 14th. He tried to appeal, claiming that his confession he made was not admissible and that he was insane.
But you volunteered it, sir.
Right. Yeah. And that's what witnesses said, was that, you know, he volunteered his confession, and there's no way. So it's shocking to me, but it didn't take long this time for Arkansas to put Big Jim to death. He was strapped into the electric chair on January 4th. So right before his, I think, 24th birthday, 25th. I can't do the math in my head right now. So right before his birthday, and while he was walking to the electric chair, he was smiling and laughing and joking with the employees. And so they set him in the electric chair and start strapping him in, and he looks at them with a smirk on his face and says, "Boys, I'm not afraid. I can take it."
Sir, you murdered 5 people. Like, don't be fucking laughing.
No, and that's the murders that he confessed to then.
Oh, God.
There's more. So.
But wait, it gets worse. It gets so much worse.
Now, there's no confirmation, of course. This is just that author is actually the one who kind of felt like that he could have been the one to do this, but in October of 1944, so that was right after he got married that year. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Charles Nipper from Lowell, Arkansas, which is in northwest Arkansas, was hitchhiking in McPherson County, Kansas. So that is 320 miles northwest of Lowell, Arkansas, only 37 miles south of Salina, Kansas, which is where he said that woman he murdered was. So he's in that area for some reason.
Okay, so Salina,
Kansas
is west of Kansas City. I couldn't find it. I was so confused. I'm on Google Maps. I'm a map person.
I did the same thing. I had to look them up too. And so there's a military base there, and Charles was in the military, and so they think that he was hitchhiking maybe from his home area back to the military base. A Kansas osteopath doctor, M.E. Lambert, they're all initials, picked him up. He was murdered too. So they found both of the guys in the car. Each of them was shot 3 times, though, which is different.
So he could have been learning. This is the first time he really acted upon it.
Yes, because it was the next year. Yeah. So he would be learning, yeah, for sure. So they were both shot 3 times. And so the author, Janie, is the one who put the 2 and 2 together. And whenever he was traveling with the cops said that they asked him, so you've killed about 12 people? And he said, no, it was more like 24, not 12.
Oh, damn.
So once, everything, he was caught and he confessed and everything, and the word got out, police from other states started calling in and would come in and question him about unsolved killings that they had.
You know what's crazy? This sounds like what you would think of for criminal minds, like the Behavioral Analysis Unit and the FBI, but they weren't concerned about this at this point. They were looking for people robbing banks and stuff like that. But if you're murdering across state lines, which we really don't see that, I mean, you'd come and play for robbery and then kidnapping with the Lindbergh baby, but murder, it had to be a big name, and he wasn't murdering big name people. He was just murdering 1 or 2 common people.
Yep. So he also admitted to, but it was never really looked into or whatever, to murdering a man in San Marcos, Texas in 1944. It didn't say when, it just said 44. And then he said between the years of 1938 and 1944 that he murdered 10 migrant workers from Arizona. I can't really put connections on where he is, the whole time, but it seemed like he literally was hitchhiking around the U.S. murdering people. He would offer clues and hint to things, but then he would just, stop talking. He was definitely toying with him. He was a sick person.
He's an Israel Keys, if we should say, to compare to a new one. They know the cops want the information, but they're like, what's he gonna do for me?
He definitely reminded me a lot of Israel Keys, for sure. So he also, when people would say something like, even though he pled, insanity, when people would actually say to him, oh, he's mentally ill or something like that, he would take offense to it. So it didn't make any sense, but he did not like people telling him that. He was pretty proud of what he did, and I think he was just trying to get off the hook from being caught.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And it was said that he would even murder people for cigarettes, and the most he got out of all of the murders was $300, and that's total.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's not worth killing people.
So no, that's it. There's no more. But one thing that I found real interesting about this is they made comic books.
What?
Apparently, back in the day, they had comic books that were true crime stories.
Oh, I believe it. We've all been true crime fans since humanity. We're all busybodies. We all want to know. Jack the Ripper was popular because he murdered someone. I can tell you numerous there are numerous historic cases where people are like, did you hear so-and-so murdered his wife? And they'd go to the courthouse. It wasn't books. It wasn't popular media. It was couple news stories, and then it would fade.
Yep.
Or because people can read.
Apparently, they had a bunch of them. He was in one called Crime Does Not Pay. It was called James Wayburn Hall, the Arkansas Killer. And the other one was called James Wayburn Hall, the Arkansas Butcher. And that one was put out by, I think it was Fox. And called Murder Incorporated.
I don't think Butcher's not correct, because he isn't a butcher.
Not at all.
He butchered his wife a little bit.
I would say. It was a little confusing to me as to why they called him that, because I didn't find it that he was butchering anyone, but I guess that was, I have no idea.
It's the go-to, think about it, it's kind of the go-to, moniker. I would say more he's the hitchhiking killer. The hitchhiker killer. He's hitchhiking and killing people.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And he enjoys it. It's not definitely just for robbery and money, and no, he enjoyed it, and the way he was real cocky about it, it's just It's disgusting. So yeah, if you want to look up the comic, I'll send you a link.
Oh, please do.
They're so weird, and they're not like dead on, you know, because I compared it to the police or the court documents and stuff. But I just couldn't believe someone actually did that.
You know, it's the end of the war period. You got to have something new, shiny to show people. But right. Do you want to plug your show?
So if anyone else hasn't listened to my show and would like to hear about some Arkansas true crime, you can find me on any podcatcher. I think I'm on Spotify, iTunes. I use Podcoin because I like to earn my little pod coins for listening. But yeah, iTunes, anything like that. You can. I have a website. It's strictlyhomicidepodcast.com. You can find me on all social media, Facebook, Twitter, all the good stuff.
And then next week, we'll be back with me probably ruining everyone's day again.
Including mine. Yay!
Bye!
Bye! Strictly Homicide is written, hosted, and produced by me, Nicki T. The original music is done by Mr. T. No, not that one. My Mr. T.
If you are a fan of the show, please make sure you are subscribed on iTunes and please rate and review the show. You can also find us on Patreon where you can support the show for as little as $1 a month.
If there is a case that you would like to discuss, or if you have any comments, corrections, or suggestions, send us an email at strictlyhomicide@yahoo.com or on social media. You can find us on most social media sites by searching Strictly Homicide Podcast and on Twitter as @StrictlyHMICIDE. That's Strictly Homicide with no O. You can also visit our website, strictlyhomicide.com. Stick around to hear a few promos from some of the best podcasts around. And until next time, y'all stay safe, especially you, Arkansas.